everybody. It's your friendly neighborhood Jerry Rasco here with you again for another amazing Spider-Man art retrospective video. Today, we're back to looking at another introduction of a villain, a new villain, to Spidey's Rogues Gallery, and another classic villain that sticks around for quite a while. So very excited about that. This issue is actually one that I read as a kid that was in a reprint. So Marvel and DC Comics both will often reprint older comic books for the newer or younger readers who didn't have a chance to read them originally, and maybe back issues are a hard thing to get. Nowadays we see more with reprints in what we call trade paperbacks, where you have lots of old issues put together. But back in the day, they would have a line of reprinted comics for you to catch up on. And so this is actually one that I read, again, like I said, as a kid, from a reprint version of this. So it was fun to go back and look at this as an adult, as an artist, and look at it from that perspective, as opposed to just a kid who's a fan of Spider-Man. I do want to say this as well. I wanted to thank everybody for watching the videos. I want to thank you so much for checking these out and participating with me. And I do, as I mentioned, read all the comments that folks leave. And after the last video, I did get comments from somebody, and I wanted to shout out this person and just respond a little bit and give you some updates. So this is Nick Caputo 4374. So Nick wrote to me about my last video specifically because if you watched it, at the end of the comic there was a short backup story of Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four that was drawn by Jack Kirby and inked by Steve Ditko. So at the time, I mentioned that I had not seen that combination before. I thought it was really fascinating. To me, people, I think, underestimate or underappreciate Steve Ditko's contributions to the Marvel Universe. Everybody talks about Stan and Jack Kirby was very prolific and designed a ton of characters, drew a lot of comics, simultaneously was an unbelievable workhorse. But Steve Ditko was drawing not only also Marvel characters and Marvel comics, in some of these early original comics and characters, but arguably the flagship and one of the most popular. Now, I think the Fantastic Four was originally designed, and the concept was Marvel's #1 go-to, but I don't think it was too long before Spider-Man took over. And to this day, when you think of Marvel and you think of well, I apologize, today is a little different with the movies and the Avengers and things like that. Again, growing up when I was a kid, the Marvel logo was actually Spider-Man. Spider-Man was on their letterhead, was on their payroll checks. Spider-Man's image was Marvel. So Steve's creating and contributing to arguably the most, one of, if not the most popular Marvel character out there. So anyway, Nick noted that Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby had worked together on other books, mostly pre-Marvel work. So things before superheroes, comics involved a lot of like westerns, romance, monsters, other types of genre, and the two of them did work together on some of that. And then it sounds like they also worked on where Steve inked Jack Kirby on Fantastic Four #13 and the Incredible Hulk #2. So there was some pairing of the two. Again, just something I wasn't super familiar with, but awesome to note. And Nick does say that he's got a blog that he does. Marvel Mysteries and Comics Minutia, aka Nick Caputo blog. So if you're interested in more Marvel history, maybe take a look for that and see if you can find Nick's blog. So thanks, Nick, for adding some other information to my last video. Appreciate it so much. Again, I love the interaction, so thank you all very much. Let's get into this one, though, and let's talk about The Amazing Spider-Man issue #9 featuring Electro. So I really like this cover quite a bit. Electro's costume is unbelievably iconic to me. I mean, so what you've got here is the character design and the colors. Another green character. So we talked about it in other videos. You've got characters such as the Vulture. We have Dr. Octopus. We have the Lizard. We have Doctor Doom wears green, and the Sandman. In fact, even in the last issue, the robot, the living brain robot that Spidey fought, was green. So what they're doing here is you're using complementary colors. So the opposite of red is green. You put those two together, and it makes both colors brighter, more vibrant, and stand out from each other. There's a psychology to it as well. Your heroes are going to almost always be depicted in primary colors. Your red, blue, yellow. So think of, Superman, Wonder Woman, Iron Man, Captain America, etc., right? They're always sort of red, blue, yellow, or some mix of those colors. Your villains, on the other hand, are your secondary colors, which are your mixing of your primary colors. So green, purple, orange. And there's a psychology to that tells us the primary colors are heroic and bold and brave, and the secondary colors are not. So that's why you see so many villains in these greens, and then later we'll see things like purples and orange. I like the cover. I love the black background. So anytime you have a cover with a black background, it's extremely bold. Your colors pop off much brighter. Obviously your yellow, your reds really pop here. So it's a great use of a way to do it. A simplified background is just a black cover with your art on front on top. I don't particularly care for the image at the bottom, and what I mean by that, it's a very well drawn image. Don't get me wrong, and I get it. It tells the story that Spider-Man's defeated. Very, very nice drawing, but this image up above really tells me all I need to know. He's going to fight Electro. Electro is obviously a bad guy because he's got a bag of money and he's in this green costume, and Spidey is getting electrocuted just trying to touch him. To me, that's enough. I'd make it bigger, even bolder, but that's what I would do with the cover. But overall, I really like it, and I think it does say a lot. But let's get into the story and see what's going on here. So we have the opening montage again for our page number 1. And I should note, as I do for every video, this is again a PDF copy of the original comic as it was the day that it came out on the stands. This is not a scan of a reprinted. So these are the original colors, the original line work, and also, as you can see, the original advertisements and things like that as well. It does say at the bottom, you see it says trademark and copyright 2004 Marvel. That was added after the comic was scanned, because this was scanned in 2004. So, but this is what it would look like. And again, a good montage. Again, could be a cover in and of itself, only because it tells you everything you need to know. There's a lot of pressure and things on this side, which is the Peter Parker side. He's dealing with a lot of stuff, whether it's sick Aunt May, a new love interest, an angry boss, or kids at school hassling him. Then, of course, Electro. And then on the other side, what's going to happen with J. Jonah Jameson, who hates Spider-Man. Betty Brant is giving Spidey the cold shoulder. We'll see more about that. What does the public feel about him, and how do the criminals think about Spidey? So they're out to get him too. So again, perfectly good cover. Could work as a cover, but for some reason decided to go with it as this montage page. I'm very interested to try to figure out why, when comic book real estate, meaning the individual pages, are very precious, and we pack in as much as we can with all these panels, why waste one on a montage where it's just rehashing the story before you get there? We'll see. Again, either it was just a style, or it really was by design. somebody thought it was a good idea. So we've seen this going through, and we'll be interested to see when it kind of that concept peters out over time. So, next page, Spidey is in a rush. Very good stuff here. I really like this leaping pose a lot. Is really great. One of the cool things about Spidey is because his costume is so unique and the mask covers his whole face, you don't have to be as precious about showing his face in every single panel. The arm covers it. That's okay because he's not giving you any expression per se. So more body language is important for a character like Spidey than it is, say, like the Incredible Hulk, right? The Incredible Hulk, you probably want to be showing that face a lot. Whereas with Spidey, you don't have to. Nice swinging, nice poses, great foreshortening here as he swings through the panel over the action and towards us, the reader. So we see the bottom of the feet, which, again, foreshortening. When you take something that's like this, which is vertical to the view or the camera, and then you tip it and point it to it, the hand gets much bigger. The back of the arm is much smaller in relation to the hand because it's closer to the view. This is called foreshortening. And that's what they do here with Spidey, with his legs and the body. So it gets smaller as it goes that way and much larger as it comes towards the reader. That's a real nice image there. I like that. I do want to point out this, which I think is interesting. This panel number 2 with Spidey leaping, to me feels backwards. What I mean by that is, as a Western reader, we read English from left to right. So as you're reading, you read left to right, down, left to right, down. That's the thing that we've all been taught, and that's what we're used to. So again, the psychology of storytelling. If I want to move things forward, I go from left to right, down, left to right, down, left to right, down. And what he's done here is he's gone, so Spidey is moving to his right and then back to his left. And what that doesn't do is that it holds the reader up there. You go, okay, so this body language is moving, just from a visual standpoint, this body language is moving me this way. And now this body language is moving me back to this other panel. Whereas what you would want to do is find a way to move him to the right, because that's how we read. We know we would move forward to the right and then down, and then right and then down. So when you have your characters moving from right to left across the page, it slows the action. It doesn't feel as fast. It doesn't feel like things are progressing. There's a psychology to it of us being delayed. And again, it comes from the way that we read. And you actually see it twice here. So great drawings, but for some reason, he's leaping back, which would bring your eye back to this panel. And then you have to sort of force your eyes down to the next one. And then same here. So then we come across, you see the crooks are afraid of Spider-Man. Spidey swings through, which is fine, but he's swinging away from the next panel. And you flip that around. You flip the whole thing so that the crooks are down here in the bottom left corner. Spidey's swinging from, or bottom right corner. Spidey's swinging from left to right across, and then running, and it just flows. So I don't know why you would do it that way. It breaks some of that flow. Something that you would want to possibly think about and change down the road. In this panel, or this page here, I love the shadowing. Shadowing is great. It really indicates, obviously a time of day, but also indicates, the sadness that Peter is dealing with and the heavy heart that he has and the things that he's going through. Because he's in shadow, right? His aunt is sick. He's worried about her. You can see it in this body language, or he's sitting in this chair, just sort of slumped over, just exhausted. And he knows that it's really bad, and he's sitting in that dark as, somebody who's suffering from depression or sadness might sit in that dark. Great image here as well. I'm going to zoom in on that because I want to just emphasize how nice this is and what you can do with small panels. So you've got this one here. there's just the slightest little dark spots to indicate Aunt May's facial features. Peter, there's nothing. It's just a sort of a circle-ish for his hair. His face is all darkened out. The chair here is a square, a couple of lines. Very, very simple drawing. But because the light is behind him and everything is casting these beautiful shadows, really nice mood, really nice storytelling. Even if there's no word balloons here, you know what's happening. Peter, she's asleep, she's sick, and Peter is watching and a vigil over her as the moon is shining in through this window. Beautiful, beautiful storytelling. I love it to death. And again, these panels are, when you have 9 panels on a page and they're divided equally like this is, that means these panels are probably, the real artwork was drawn about 3 inches wide by 5 inches tall. So think about how small some of these little things are, that, the little glass and the little bottle by the bedside. I mean, just great little touches of just the smallest hint of a line, a shadow, but it tells us the whole story. Great, great stuff. Sometimes less is more. On the flip side of that, though, the next panel, I want to point out more is more. So most characters, you have a character with an electric superpower, they would go, the character's electric. He generates electricity. I don't need to explain how it works, or, it's not technology. He has electric powers and he does it. But what Steve did here is there's these wires and these discs and stuff underneath Electro's body, which makes sense. If you know anything about electricity, you know that it's going to follow those paths along something like a wire or a metal framework. So this is him saying that this guy is smart enough. He has created not only a costume to go out and use his powers for ill gains, but he's used some understanding of the science of electricity to better control the powers, to route the electricity how he wants and where he wants. So I really like that. That's a small detail that you wouldn't have to show, but a great way of showing it. And again, showing, not telling. Like he says, I'm all wired up for what I have to do, but he's not going on about like, these wires will help me direct my electricity and give me the control. It's just, it's shown and we understand. So sometimes, again, details are great. Show, don't tell. Less is more until more is more. And I like this body language. He's charging himself up with electricity, and very nice angling back of the back like that. Again, super, super tiny little figure, but I really like that body language. Very cool. Let's see. So we'll go to the next page. Here, Electro is robbing an armored bank or armored car. And again, what I like about this is the way that the camera's moved around. So it becomes very easy if you're not careful when you're focused on your primary characters, your hero characters or your supporting characters, to just focus on them and keep that camera like it would be if you were recording something. So if you're recording a video of somebody, you're sort of standing in one spot and they move around and you kind of follow them, but everything sort of stays the same. But really what we like in more dynamic storytelling, whether that's movies, television, video, comics, whatever it is, you want that camera to move around with the action. So the best stuff has cuts to move that camera, and that's what it does here. So the camera right now is looking past the guards, and we see Electro coming up the distance. Then the camera flips around in the opposite direction, and we're over Electro's shoulder as he shoots his first zap at the guard. Then we've come to a close-up of the guard's hands as it's getting zapped to make him drop the money. Now back to Electro, and Electro is, it's not quite 100% at the camera, but he's shooting basically this lightning bolt sort of at us, at the viewer. So, and then a nice high shot, so the camera's moved all the way to the top, up above, showing the whole action of what's going on, that he's got these guys surrounded and surrendering. So you've got 5 panels and 5 camera moves. And that makes it interesting for the reader. We could have sat right on this one image of the first part here. You could have kept your guards here, Electro behind him. We'll do it this way. Electro to the camera. Electro behind him, the guards in the front. And he could have, the next scene would have been still him back here shooting at the guard. It could have been, again, back the guard in the front, getting zapped, dropping the bag. I mean, you could have kept it all at the same angle, which would have been very boring. But here, they've moved the camera around. Steve's moved the camera around and really given us a more dynamic storytelling of what's going on. So great tip and something to definitely look for. Minimal background. So when you come to the next page, Peter is dealing with the doctor, his aunt. He has to go to school, but his mind isn't there. And then we change the scene and he's outside. Now, if you don't have these little details, like here in the science, he's messing around with electronics and things like that. If you don't change the background in the scenery, you might just think that somehow all these kids all of a sudden came into his aunt's room. Like, why are these kids here? By changing that background and what he's doing, that helps sell the scene as something different. Same here. Now he's outside, so we've got a tree, we've got a bush, we've got some stairs. And again, just the fewest little lines to indicate, a building, a window, stairs. These trees are very simple. It's just a blobby shape with some dark spots. That's all there is to it. But it sells us that they're now outside and Peter's leaving school to go somewhere else. And then here he's at the hospital, and we know he's at a hospital even if we don't read anything, because we can see, obviously, this guy is a doctor by his outfit, but then we have a nurse in the front. And the nurse, it plays no part in this scene whatsoever. We don't talk to the nurse isn't doing anything critical, but the nurse is in the foreground, and it's just a way to create a real space. So think about it. If you're a comic book artist or somebody who wants to draw comics, think about when you go out somewhere, you go to the bank and you're standing in line to talk to the teller. How many other people are in the bank? Maybe somebody's sitting and waiting, somebody's in line at another teller. They're not part of your story that you're telling, which is I'm going to the bank, but they fill in that world and make it real. So don't forget to add background actors to your scenes where you can, where it makes sense, because it will, again, help flesh it out and make your world feel real and populated. And it's hard sometimes. We all can come up with character designs for our heroes, again, for our supporting characters, like Flash Thompson here and Liz Allen and Aunt May and Betty Brant. They all have designs. That's great. But this nurse, you haven't spent a bunch of time designing the nurse. So what do you do when you need to fill in space? My recommendation, use people from life. Use people from your own life. Put in your friends, put in your family, put people you went to school with, anything like that. If you see someone really unique out and about, put them in. It's easier than creating everything from scratch. So that's my recommendation is how you can use people to help fill in the world of your comics. Again, nice swinging here and leaping around. Or again, before I jump off this thing of simple backgrounds to tell you the scene has changed. So Peter is talking with his aunt and Betty, who's been sitting with her, right? So that they're in a hospital room. She's in a bed. There's a little call button there. We know that's a hospital room. If we had zoomed in here and had a real close shot of Peter and Betty talking in this, would be the 6th panel on this page, you might think they're still in the room, that they just stepped away from Aunt May, but they're in the room. By pulling the camera back wide and showing steps, a door, windows, and then this little fraction of a sign that looks like it's a Q, that's part of a U, and then an H and an O and a Z. That's enough for us, because we understand where he is and what's going on. That's a sign that probably says, it either says quiet hospital zone, or maybe it says Queens Hospital, because he lives in Queens, New York. So, but it's enough again to put us into a different scene. There's been a cut. Maybe, think about it like it's a commercial break, or it's a cut. So we've gone from inside the hospital in the room to outdoors going down the steps and talking to Betty. Spidey is zooming around trying to think about what he's going to do, and now he gets caught in the rain. And rain is not easy to draw, especially back then where we don't have the same digital tools that we have today. So today you could just draw Spidey, draw your background, color it all in, go in with Photoshop over the top of everything, and just drop white rain lines and add water puddle on top of everything that you've already drawn. Here you can't really do that, and a lot of that has to do with how color is printed and the older printing technology. So what do? You do a bunch of horizontal parallel lines to indicate the raindrops. It's all about the hint, the illusion of it. But what I want to point out that sells this as Spidey is walking in the rain, these little dots. So you see these little dots around the outside of Spidey's shoulders? Those are indications that the raindrops are hitting him and splashing up off his body. If you don't have those, it might look like it's rain or there's something between us, but that it's not interacting with him. Because again, you notice none of the rain lines are covering the figure. So you draw them all around, and then these little dots to show the splashes. It's a great old school way of showing rain and how the rain affects things and how it interacts with things without actually drawing the rain and the water over the top of it the way we can do today. So that's a really hard thing to do, and did a great job, and just an old school example of how that's done. So here we go. Electro is going to rob the bank. Of course, who happens to be there but J. Jonah Jameson, naturally. And interesting little story piece here again, that J. Jonah Jameson is so anti-Spider-Man that he jumps to the conclusion out of two pieces of information that we find here. So one, Electro knows who J. Jonah Jameson is. Now, he is the publisher and the vocal face of the Daily Bugle, which in Spidey's world is the most popular read newspaper in New York City. So everybody knows who J. Jonah Jameson is. This guy has been on TV. He's offered rewards for villains and capture and stuff. The whole city knows who he is. Then, as Electro uses his powers to rob the bank, he uses his powers to essentially create a magnetic field to interact with the steel beams inside the building so he can crawl up the building. A little bit of a stretch, but electricity is part of magnetism, so okay. And of course, J. Jonah Jameson comes to the conclusion with a great picture here and a great facial expression that obviously Electro has to be Spider-Man. And nobody else knows who J. Jonah Jameson is and can climb up a wall. Has to be Spider-Man in disguise so he could be a crook. And that's exactly what he tells New York City, and everybody immediately jumps to the conclusion, well, we've seen Spider-Man stop villains. We've seen him stop the Vulture twice. We've seen him save an astronaut from a crashing space capsule. Like, we know he stopped the Sandman. Like, we know that Spider-Man has stopped numerous villains, but today, J. Jonah Jameson, with no proof whatsoever, tells us that Electro and Spider-Man are the same people. Obviously, it must be true. Spidey is a criminal and is a jerk. So, trope that we see happen for years and years and years. The idea that Spider-Man is a menace, a vigilante menace, where other superheroes, like the Fantastic Four, get a free pass, is something that we see going through Spidey forever. I do want to talk about a couple of things, these last two panels on each of these pages. So we have Spidey swinging, and then we have Spidey leaping over. Now this pose is great. So let's zoom in a little bit so we can see both of them. This one is really good. I like the body language, the foot here, this foot bent up in the shadow, coming down, the arms juxtaposed to one another, and there's not a huge twist. The body could be twisted a little more, but overall very good. And again, because it's Spidey, you don't have to have his face for facial expressions because you can't see his facial expressions. So you can still show him from behind and with the dialogue and the body language express his feelings and what he's doing. So pretty good image. There's only, overall, I'm going to say this is a good image of Spidey. This one over here where he's swinging, interesting swing pose. He's shooting, the web with one hand, holding on the other. It's a nice angle. It takes us, from here, from the left to the right. All good. There are a couple of things here, though, that I know we've talked about in other videos that I want to point out, and that is called tangents. So tangents, as I've mentioned before, is where two lines on a two-dimensional piece of paper or two-dimensional surface, so a piece of paper, a screen, whatever you're drawing on, canvas, whatever it is flat. It's two-dimensional. When two lines come together and basically match up with each other, you can't tell which one is in front of the other anymore. So even if you go like this, if they don't cross over each other, they flatten it out and it looks like they're right next to each other, even though one may be in front, one may be in back. So you have to have things crossing, overlapping to break that. And what we have here are kind of two areas with some tangents on Spidey. So one is this foot. So you can see this line of the building comes down and kind of lines up with his foot. So yes, it overlaps the piece on the bottom, but it doesn't overlap this part here. And so that flattens that out and makes that this black rectangle area is basically almost next to Spidey's foot instead of behind Spidey's foot. So that's something that could be very easily fixed just by pulling out this line, a 1/4 of an inch this way, going up here, and now Spidey's foot is completely overlapping. The other one is with this leg, and there's kind of two sections. So one is the lower leg. So you have this shadow from the roof below, and then you have this roof line here, and if you track it back, it lines up with the lower part of Spidey's leg, and again, sort of flattening that out, making it look like it's hard to tell that what's in front, what's behind. So again, how would you fix that? You could simply move this roof line piece here up a little bit and overlap it with the thigh, and then you wouldn't worry about it. And then the last part, this one isn't as bad, but where the knee intersects with this water tower. Again, it's not a perfect tangent, but it's pretty close. Your eye follows this line and then comes down and it goes like that. So again, kind of flattens that out. How do you fix it? You take the upper leg, you bend it more forward so that the knee is hitting more of that middle of the water tower. And then the lower leg could still go at an almost 90 degree or slightly more than 90 degree angle back across this way, and boom, your tangents are fixed. So something to watch out for if you're an artist and you're drawing things. You don't want those lines of two different things in space to match up perfectly. If something's in front, it needs to be overlapped of the thing in back. So let's keep moving. Oops. So Spidey is swinging around. These are amazing, great poses. I love a lot of this stuff. Like here, he's sticking to the wall. He thinks he spots somebody and thinks that it might be a crook, but it's just somebody with a telescope. But I love the web is using from the building to help hold him as he's leaning out over. So that really helps and gives you a sense of weight. Even though this figure is super, super tiny, you feel like he's hanging and weight and gravity is pulling him down. This one here where he's kind of upside down swinging around is good. These other montage swings are great. This one is awesome. My note here says great twist. The body is twisted so nicely. So you still have that foreshortening. Your foot is coming at the reader in front of what would be the ankle, which would be in front of the calf, which is in front of the thigh, which is in front of the hip. So you have that piece there. And then you twist that whole torso up and the head. That is dynamic figure drawing and dynamic storytelling. He's swinging in one direction. The weight of the web is pulling his arm and upper body in another direction, and he's looking around at the same time. Excellent. This is the thing that any comic book artist who's, again, trying to figure out what they're doing today, look at this drawing. It's simple, it's small, but it tells you exactly what you need to do. Twist your bodies in space, use foreshortening to make it dynamic, and that's the most energetic panel in this whole page. Phenomenal figure drawing. The upside down here, where he's looking through at these guys who are just working, so no crime going on there, no Electro, but again, a nice upside down. Spidey can do things that other people can't, so put him in those positions. He can hang upside down. He can hang horizontally off a wall. All that kind of stuff. He finally finds Electro, starts taking a few pictures, and jumps into action. Again, we're moving the camera around a lot, so right now a down shot from behind Spidey to show where he is up high, Electro down low. Then we flip. Now the camera is slightly lower below Electro, probably like at his waist, looking up as he blasts at Spidey with his electricity. Nice pose here as Spidey is falling down and shooting a web. Again, nice twisting of the body, overlapping the arm in front of the leg, giving it depth. Again, stuff you want to be doing with your action poses. Spidey goes with his trope of, I'm going to zap the bad guy with webbing on the face to distract him, and then I can knock him out. But Electro, of course, can burn off the webbing, and then when Spidey touches him, he gets electrocuted. The guy he's electric all the time. Now, so a couple of things. First, the pose here where he's bent over, burning the webbing off of him, off his face. Great body language, right? Hunched over, that leg forward, but then cocked out for balance. The hands to the face, very nice pose. You can actually feel like he's in the middle of crouching down and reaching for his hand or his face. And then this one, of course, is phenomenal, right? Spidey getting hit with the electricity. That toe is on the ground, very important. He's grounded, hence the reason the electricity got him. And then this hand here, the claw hand of getting zapped and being like, the head thrown all the way back. Again, terrific body language. And then we end here with obviously a smoking Spider-Man. I love the smoke. He's been zapped, so terrific. The pipe in the front, again, okay, just adding another element. So that's in the true foreground, even though Spidey is large in the foreground here. This becomes the middle ground. Kind of still sort of foreground. The pipe's in front. The middle, if you will, is sort of Spidey. Then you have Electro, and then you also have buildings in the background. Also, so Electro, great body language there as well. Nice upshot. So we're coming from the roof up through him. So again, the legs, it's kind of spine is bent, which again, people don't tend to stand perfectly straight up and down. And if you notice in all of these things here, nobody is ever standing really straight up and down. Maybe here where Spidey's taking a photo, but even then his leg is bent. All of the figures are moving and bending. Even this one, when he's standing, he's not straight up and down. His back is arched because we stand with our backs arched sometimes. So very, very nice stuff there. I like it a lot. Here we have, we get into the background. Electro sort of is pontificating and talking about his old background and how he was a guy that worked on high voltage electrical lines, and then that's how he gets his powers. So not much from an artistic point here to talk about. Pretty basic stuff, small figures. It's okay. Nothing. It gets the job done and moves us through the story. Same here. He, okay, it's just telling his story. Nothing we haven't seen in terms of the art so far. So perfectly good. The next one that I come to that I think is really good, make sure, yeah, is this one here. So Electro goes in and he decides he's going to start a prison break, I guess, and then that way everybody will be too busy to chase him. They'll be after all the people he's released from prison. So you could have Electro, you could show him in the middle of the cell block, zapping stuff to the sides. You could do something like that. But what Steve's chosen to do is show you through the bars of the cell. So you have, the hand, the face in the foreground, the bars, and now we see Electro through the bars, and then on the other side of the bars, more prisoners inside of cells with with bars in front of them. Again, what does that do? It just creates depth. So your figure here, that very little bit of him in the hand is closest to us, and then the bars, then Electro, etc. So it gives us depth in again, what is just a piece of two-dimensional paper. It's flat. That's all there is. So nice way of doing that. Let's see. So here we come into again, more story stuff with Peter and Betty, and how she's really super sweet. Obviously things are really starting to happen between them in terms of the love angle. But as we get here, he has to go, and his excuse, of course, is he has to take pictures. This is big news. There's a battle going on at the prison, and these are great. Again, great. I mentioned it in every video so far. Steve Ditko does an amazing job of doing figure and character designs that are different, for each character, even if they're just a background guy. So these are criminals we'll never see again, but each of them has a very unique face, and he's made them particularly ugly, so we know that they're bad people. Again, the psychology of visual storytelling. Great job there with that. Great punch here. Really feel it. I like that a lot. Again, selling it. So if you ever, there's a book that's called How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And one of the things it tells you is, in that book, is anytime you over exaggerate the body motion. So if, like, this cop is throwing a punch, if he just throws a punch and his body's straight up, it's not very powerful. If you turn that body, the more you turn that body and the more it deviates from the center line of the body, the more energy there is. And so this is pretty good. He's not a superhero, but this is a pretty good punch for this figure in this panel. And then Betty and Peter are talking. He's got to go take photos of this, and she doesn't want him to because somebody she knew was involved in dangerous things, and she couldn't stand something bad to happen to Peter, and so she's almost like, maybe be better to not be involved with you than to see something bad happen to you because of your dangerous job. So now there's a wedge that's possibly forming between them. So is this new love interest going to break apart before it ever really gets started? But now it's time for action. Now it's time for Spidey, and this is a awesome running pose. We've seen some similar. I actually went back to make sure. I was like, did Steve Ditko swipe himself? Meaning, a swipe is when you copy a pose or panel or drawing from another comic in your own. Now, I thought maybe he had just repeated this pose of himself, and there's no qualms about swiping yourself. If you drew it, it's not swiping. You're not stealing it from another artist. So if you want to repeat that pose 20 times, by all means, go ahead. But I looked, and in the last issue, there is a pose of Spidey running, but it is different than this. So I really like this one a lot. This is great. The lean is fantastic. The way the arms are coming forward, this leg going back. This is a great running pose. Terrific here. And takes us, again, with the body language, from left to right, the way we want it, and now down, which is the way we want it. So good storytelling there. As well, this little figure here coming in from left to right, and then continuing left from right through the window. So excellent visual storytelling there. We understand that it moves us ahead. Of course, J. Jonah Jameson now realizes horribly that Spider-Man couldn't possibly be Electro, because now they're both in the same place at the same time. Lastly, another trope that comes up on this page, Spidey is going to use rubber gloves and rubber boots. Back then they just called them rubbers. So it's a rubber, for anybody who doesn't know, it's a rubber slip-on that goes over shoes that was designed to keep them dry. So if it rained or it snowed, you'd put these rubber booties over your shoes, keep your shoes dry. He's wearing those and rubber gloves because the rubber will insulate him from the electricity. That's the plan. So again, this is the trope of Peter is smart. Peter understands science. Peter knows electricity. And now that he knows what this guy can do, he's going to use that combination of his science smarts with his spider powers to defeat the villain. Again, a formula we've seen so far with all the other villains that have come across so far. So good action, diving in, beating up the bad guys. I like this one as well. Great motion where the body's coming across and he's flinging people away from him. Very, very nice there. And now, again, he's using his science. If Electro wants to try to shoot lightning at him, all Spidey has to do is put metal objects in the way between him and the lightning bolt, and the lightning's going to be attracted to the metal object before it gets attracted to Spider-Man. So, again, smart, using his science. Great job. This is a great kicking pose. So he's going to kick sand over a bucket of sand at Electro. I like it because you feel it. Like he could be kicking a field goal, a soccer goal. Like he is really kicking pretty hard. Look how leaned back his body is compared to this foot. Again, fun action, great pose. The more dynamic and interesting and spread out your figure gets with their pose, twisted, turned, the more energy there is. So you can see really the difference, right? Like this pose here where he's kicking the sand, a lot of energy, a lot of action. This one, he's fending off these electrified wires and he's just kind of standing there. Now the legs are bent and he's leaned back. But this is a much more static, still pose versus this one. You can really feel the motion of that leg coming through in the motion. I do find it interesting that Electro, I don't know where he got the gun from. He doesn't have a holster. He doesn't have a pack. He doesn't have a belt. I don't know where he pulled the gun from. But, he gets desperate, pulls the gun. Spidey, shuts that down pretty fast. So, now, here we go. Again, awesome dynamics here. I put here more great action poses. I love it. He gets the fire hose and realizes, of course, immediately water and electricity don't match, don't work together. So why don't I just spray him with water and short him out? That'll work. But I love this pose. All the weight is on his hands as he's leaping his body, that horizontal pose there. You really feel like he's just leaped straight up. Great bend to the leg and to the arms. And then it continues, right? His momentum continues and takes him upside down. So really nice boom, boom, kind of from pose to pose. And makes a lot of sense. He's still in the air even. And then he's landing here as he comes down and sprays Electro. Very nice, again, visual storytelling of the motion of a body. Up, over, and then down. Really good there. And then he unmasks Electro and he's like, I have no idea who this guy is. Which is hilarious. Why wouldn't Peter take his own advice or learn from this and go, hey, if someone was to unmask me, there's a good chance nobody's going to know who I am. I live in a city with millions of people. Who's going to recognize this one guy? So I think it's just funny that he's like, I have no idea who this dude is. And so Jonah's in a furious state because of his false claims. but now he's got more pictures. Peter's got more pictures, of course, of Spider-Man and Electro fighting, and he's like, "Ooh, I can reprint these," and so he basically kind of robs Peter, but Peter feels good about it because it justifies what he got paid for before. That made it sort of look like maybe Spidey was Electro. So it all works out great. Jonah thinks he's conniving and getting one over on him, but Peter feels better about it anyway. So it all works out there just fine. Now, Betty and Peter come to, a breaking point here where she's upset that he went to the jail to take pictures. And he's like, he just kind of lays it on the line. He's like, "Hey, I like you a lot. But I got to do what I got to do." And, she explains how there was somebody close to her who, got in trouble, got bad things happened when they got involved in dangerous stuff. And, oh well. And that she can't live to see that again. So as far as Peter thinks, he's like, well, that's the end of that. Aunt May's doing better, but who shows up at the end? But Betty. And she apologizes. She's really sorry, and things are going to move forward just nicely. So we've got that another wonderful Spider-Man trope of walking off into the distance at the end of the issue. So there we go. There is the end of Amazing Spider-Man number 9, featuring the first appearance of Electro. So here we are back. A fun issue. I like it. I think the artwork was kind of, in the previous issues we had seen what I thought was either maybe another inker was involved, or Steve Ditko was working faster to make deadlines. There was something different about the art that I thought kind of fell a little short. Here I feel like we're back up to the standards that we've seen in the early issues of Amazing Spider-Man. Steve Ditko is doing great storytelling with there's a lot happening. There's a lot of panels. There's a lot of dialogue. This one is jam-packed with a lot of stuff, but he does a really great job. He gives us a truly iconic, unique villain design in Electro. Fantastic stuff and good action. So I enjoyed it. This is, again, one of those nostalgic Spider-Man issues for me. It takes me back to my childhood of reading that reprint. And I'm very excited about what we have coming up. So the next issue of Amazing Spider-Man, let me pull that up and see if we'll give you a little sneak peek maybe. So issue number 10 is another villain, and this one is a group. So I'll tell you who it is, and we'll get into it. But this next issue, Amazing Spider-Man number 10, introduces us to the villain team called the Enforcers. Probably, if you're not an old school fan like me, maybe somebody you're not as familiar with. We haven't seen them a lot in modern Spidey comics. They're kind of an old school bad guy team, but this will be a lot of fun. So thank you all for checking out the video. As always, I appreciate your time and your support. Feel free to like the video if you enjoyed the content. Subscribe to the channel. The Spider-Man videos do come out every Monday at 8 a.m. Central Time. As well, I'm going to be doing other videos. I have drawing videos, and we're going to be doing a live stream launch very soon for my next comic book, M Squad issue number 2. So check those out as well. I also have tutorial videos here on YouTube talking about drawing techniques, drawing processes, tools, etc. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the art process of making comics yourself, those videos are out there, can help as well. If you leave comments, I'll read them, as you saw with this one today. Let me know what you think. And again, thank you all so much for your support, and we'll see you here next week with another Amazing Spider-Man art retrospective video. Thanks so much.